Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We are going to start our webinar about API and integration with the Bringg system. So I will start with, first of all, introducing myself and other panelists that we have today. We have quite a nice forum. So my name is Hadar, and I'm a Customer Success Manager here at Bringg. We also have with us from Bringg, Alex and Roy from our development team. They will be here to answer some of your questions at the end of this webinar. And last but not least, we have Raigo Sitam from Food Hunt. Food Hunt is a restaurant delivery service that uses Bringg for quite a few months already, and that created an integration with the Bringg system. And Raigo is here with us to share a little bit about how he uses Bringg and what is the value for his business. So let's get started. What we're going to talk about today, we'll start obviously with a short introduction to the Bringg system, what it does, and then dive a little bit into APIs and integrations. And we'll move to Raigo that will present his case and his use of Bringg. Please note that you have a questions section on the GoToWebinar interface. Sorry, you're welcome to add questions as I talk and as Raigo talks, and I promise that at the end of the webinar we will leave about 15 to 20 minutes to answer your questions. So please feel free to enter questions as soon as you have them, and we will take a look at them and answer all of them together at the end. I also wanted to let you know that we will be holding such a webinar once every 2 to 3 weeks in the coming months. You can register to that webinar. I'm just making sure that you can see my screen. So you can register to that webinar right here on our website on resources. You can see the section called webinar. Under this section, you can always see what is the upcoming webinar and what it will be talking about, and also register, just as you did on this one. And if you want to get updates on email, you can go into our blog. By the way, it has very nice issues and articles for you to read. But right here, if you scroll down, you can see our Bringg newsletter. Just register here and you'll get all the updates sent to you directly. So now that we're done with all the technical details, let's start talking about Bringg a little bit. So Bringg is a platform. Well, I assume most of you know what it is that we do, but just to get us all on the same page. Bringg is a platform aimed for businesses to help them manage the deliveries that they do. It gives you, well, we have, let's say, three players in our system. First one is the management dashboard. This is what you see in the middle, and we'll go into each one of them for just a little bit. On the right side, you can see the driver app. So Bringg gives you a native mobile app for your drivers to manage their day. And on the left-hand side is the customer. The customer doesn't have an app, or not necessarily. It is up to you, but on the off-the-shelf, out-of-the-box Bringg experience, the customer doesn't need an app, and we will see that as well in just a second. So Bringg gives you, as we said, a nice, smooth tool to manage your deliveries and your drivers throughout the day. And it also gives you a great customer experience, kind of similar to what Uber gives today to their customers. So you can track your delivery in real time. So we will see that as well in a moment. And it's also a great tool for your drivers to manage their day. I would like to show very, very briefly the flow of one order, so we all have the terminology in place once we start talking about API integration and what we can do with that. So the flow starts with the customer, obviously, placing an order. Now, placing an order can be done via telephone, but it can also be done on your websites or on your native apps. And this is where integration comes in. This order will then be sent to the Bringg dashboard, and from the Bringg dashboard assigned to a driver. Just a side note, assigning orders to drivers can be done either manually or automatically, or using something we call grab mode. That means each order is sent to all drivers for the first one to grab it. So once the order was placed, sent to Bringg and dispatched to a single driver, the driver now gets a push notification asking him or her to accept the order. Once it is accepted, it is added to this driver's task list. Inside one specific order, each driver can see all the details that he or she needs in order to fulfill this delivery. That would be the customer name, the due time and date if needed, an address, all the order details and notes sent from the customer. And of course, a driver can also use those little buttons that you can see here in blue to call the customer directly, message the customer directly, or navigate to the address. Once a driver is ready to start the way towards the customer, he just clicks right here, starting the order. And the next thing that would happen, again, I'm reminding you that this is the off-the-shelf product that we offer, and we will see later that all of this is configurable and can be done a little differently. But once the driver hits start order, the customer will get a notification via SMS or email or both. And this notification will have the text that you want with a link to track the driver in real time. This tracking screen is an HTML5. It's a web view, not a native app, but it can be integrated into your native app. The next thing that would happen, just to complete the flow of an order, is that the driver now announces his arrival. The driver can take a picture or a signature or payment on site, anything you need as proof of delivery and anything you need for your workflow that the driver would do. And finally, the driver clicks left location, and by that, letting you and the customer know that this order was completed. From that moment on, the customer will not be able to track the driver anymore, and he or she will be asked to rate the service. Now, as we said about this customer view, this view is basically a web view, so no need for a native app. But we do have an SDK for Android and iOS to implement this view into your native app. I will not go into this very much, so this is something that you should know that you can find on our developers portal. We will see it in a few minutes. I will show you where you can find it. So this is something we will not really go into today, but just so you know that this entire experience can be integrated directly into your native app. So as I said, what we saw right now is our off-the-shelf product, and it is all based on APIs. Those same APIs are the ones that we expose also to you, so you can be using, and this is what we will be looking at. The APIs that we're looking at today are developer APIs. They are a little different than partner APIs. I know that some of the participants on this webinar are partners, and I would just like to take a short note at this point and say that there is a small difference between partners and developers, so this is something you should know. Developers can create all sorts of actions that we will see soon only on their environment, while partners can create new environments, new Bringg accounts, and use the API on all of them. So we will not see how you can use APIs on more than one, well, basically two environments, but more than your own environment. We will focus on developer API today. So let's get started with our APIs. We will not go into too much detail, but I do want to show a little bit of how to get started, what some best practices and some differences between two types of integration that we show. So I mentioned our developers portal, and this is an important issue and a point to stop on. So I'm going back to our website because our developer portal can be found right here. So you can see under developer, our dev portal, and I'm just going to click here because everything I'm going to show and talk about today is available for you to look at after and use our examples on our developer portal. Once you start working on an API integration, I highly recommend reading through all of these guidelines. And afterwards, you can, of course, find the different calls that you need to use on this menu on the left-hand side. Last note before we start. developers must use HTTPS. I know that maybe some of you already started working with HTTP, but this is something that will be deprecated soon. So if you haven't started yet, please make sure that you do use HTTPS. So I'm going to start with actually this table that we see right here, and say that we have, well, let's say two forms of integration into our system. One of them is web services, and the other is APIs. It's important to know that we're currently migrating from APIs to services, and this means a few things. First of all, it means that the services cover, let's say, less functions than APIs. It still means that you can do pretty much most of what you would need to do with Bringg, you can do with the services, but you should know that there are things that you can do with APIs and you can't do with services, but not the other way around. However, services allow you a more simple form of integration. So some things that you can do with just one service, you will need 3 API calls to do. And we will see an example in just a few minutes. So services are much more easy to use than APIs, but it's important to know that basically it's a different approach to our integration. So it's the difference between using a private public key with the API calls and a uniquely generated URL with the services. And we will take a look in this right now. So let's start with the services being the simpler form, and then we will move to APIs. So I'm moving to the Bringg dashboard. And of course, in order to do the integration, you would have to register to a Bringg dashboard. This dashboard is already customized from the last webinar, actually. Your dashboard might look a little different color-wise. And the services can be found and generated right from the dashboard. So what I'm going to do is go to the profile picture on the top right corner and go to Settings. Under Settings, you can find Webhooks and API, and this is where you will find your services. So right here, the API tab, and we will go to Webhooks right after we talk about services and API calls. Right under APIs, I can generate new types of API. So for example, and the most common and most important call to start with is create order. So I'm going to generate one create order URL. This is the URL that is unique to me, unique to my environment, that I can use in order to create new orders. Now, just to understand, and here there is a big difference between services and APIs, using this URL, using this service, allows you to create a new customer, create a new order, and create multiple stops within the order, all in one call. I will stop right here to explain a little bit what I mean by creating customer, creating task, creating stops, or waypoints in our terminology. So every task, let's take a look at that. I'm going to show one task for an example. Every task has a customer. That customer has a phone number and an address, and every task can have between 1 and however many you want waypoints. So here we see an example of just one waypoint, but if I had more, I would have this box happening more and more times with a serial number next to each waypoint. So waypoint is a stop for the driver on the way. So one task can have 2 waypoints, for example, like we will see on Food Hunt's case in just a little bit. Food Hunt, for example, picks up food from restaurants and delivers it to customers. So the first waypoint would be the pickup restaurant, and the second would be the customer. And there are so many other different cases. For example, if you pick up laundry from customers, the first point would be the customer, but the second point would be the laundry shop, for example. So when I say customer, I mean the location or the person or the entity, so it can be also the restaurant of each waypoint. And this needs to be created. So when I use API calls, for example, I would need to first create this customer, Hadar Barir, then create a task for with Hadar as a customer, so my test form task, and then create the different waypoints and add them into the task. With services, this is all done via the same call. So now that we have all that terminology set, I'm going back to the services just to see some other options that we have. So all the actions, that you see here are available, and since we're migrating from APIs to services, you will see more and more of those actions added as time goes by. So very common actions that we have is, of course, create order, create user. So user would be a driver or an admin, and you can create them using our services. You can start order remotely, so you don't need a driver to start. This is another very common service. And of course more. I'm not going to go into all of them right now. One other thing that we see here is the tag. The tag is something that also doesn't exist on our API calls. This allows you to tag the different calls. So for example, if I want to differentiate orders coming from different origins, for example, I might have two websites, one in English, one in French, and I want to know which of my customers ordered where. So I can differentiate. I can select create order as my API type and tag it French. This will help me in reporting. Let me refresh the browser. So this will help me in reporting. This data later I'll be able to extract data of how many orders were done this week through the French website versus the English website. So I'm going to continue here, and I know there are some questions we're going to relate to them later. I'm going to continue to the APIs. So first of all, the first step in APIs is you would need to become a developer. That means, and this is found on our merchant profile on the settings, becoming a developer means generating your own private public keys in order to create and sign the API calls. So the first step would be becoming a developer. Again, everything I say can be found later on the developer portal. So I'm just going to click here and fill out all my details right in this form, and this will generate the keys. So I'm going to quickly do that. I just want to show what it looks like, what the keys look like, and where you can find them. So just for this example, I will be both contacts, but of course it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. We would appreciate if you could also fill in the other information. I will leave that open since it is a test account in any case. And I have my keys generated. So now I have two sets of keys. Again, another important issue to note. So I can find my keys later under settings, as we said, and I have now a new section that is called developers. So this is where I'll find my keys. And you can see that I have two sets of keys. So once you become a developer, you're generated a new environment, a new account on Bringg, so that you have one test environment for your developers and one production for once you start working. By the way, even when you use services, you can generate your developer keys just so you have those two environments. And then in each environment, you will need to generate the unique URLs from start. So if you want to create, and you will have two URLs, for example, to create orders, one URL for your test environment and the other for your production environment. So now I can see I have two environments and two sets of keys that I will be using for in order to sign my API calls. So I'm going to jump back to the documentation just to show kind of how to get started there and what is the flow of create order. So just as we showed on the services, create order is the first API type to select, and you can use the URL. By the way, the documentation for how to create a task on services can be found right here. but I'm going to talk about how to create an order using APIs if you decide to use that path. So in order to create a new task on Bringg using your API, as I said, you start with create customer. So you would need to first create a customer, a new customer on Bringg. If you already have a customer ID because it's a returning customer, you can use that. But first of all, you need to have a customer ID. The next thing to do would be to create a task. And then if you have more than one stop within this task, you can add waypoints to the task. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and here is all the waypoints calls. So as we said, there are a few things that can be done using API calls, but not services. So at the moment, all of the update calls are only available on the APIs, but this of course will change with time because we will add more services to our system. Also, if you scroll down, you will find some more advanced features, and they are the reason I say that you can usually start with services, and only when your use case and when your workflow goes a little more complex, it's good to add some API calls. So for example, Teams are not available on services right now. Also applications like Auto Dispatch or Inventory. But again, these are things that are on top of the basic use case, let's say. And I'm going to end my part with webhooks. Webhooks are callbacks from our server on certain events that happen on the account. So instead of asking the Bringg server what's going on with this task or with that waypoint, what you can do is set up webhooks that will alert you every time an event happens. So when I say event, I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going back to the Bringg dashboard, back to the settings, back to webhooks and API. So we're pretty much concentrated on this area. And I'm going to go to webhooks. You can see here a list of all the different events you can get a callback on. So when an order is created, when an order is accepted, when the order is done, other things, and very important, when a note is added. So just some examples how we would be using those webhooks, and I think Rygo will give even more elaborate examples and maybe more useful ones. But for example, you might want to know every time a driver adds a photo to an order. So if your workflow means that you leave the order on the front door when the customer is not home and you ask your driver to take a picture of that as a proof of delivery, you would want to know that that happened. So every time that, you can just add your URL here, and every time the driver adds a photo to the order, you will get a callback from us. Another option would be shift ended for driver. So every time a driver goes on shift, we might want to know about that and maybe act upon it. So this is a good webhook to add here. I do encourage you to go through them. You would find a lot of useful actions here. Again, much depending on your workflow. So I'm going to end my part here and invite Rygo to share with us a little bit about his case and how he uses Bringg and how he structured his API. So Rygo, I'm passing the presentation screen, the presentation rights to you. Oh, just one second. Okay, so sorry, I see that Rygo is going to be back in about 6 or 7 minutes, so we will take some questions at this point. Okay, so just taking a look at the questions you sent us. Okay, one second. Just want to make sure we see everything. Okay, so we have a question. So we have a question about the flow of an order. What happens when there are multiple drops on a delivery route with regards to customer tracking? So this is a good question about the flow, not necessarily about the integration. So when there are more than one stop on the route of one order, each customer will only be able to track their own stop. For example, if we have 3 stops, one being the pickup location, the second one being me as one drop-off, and the third one being customer B as the other drop-off, I will be able to track the driver only once the driver left the pickup location and only once the driver left the pickup location and started going towards me as a customer, or not as a customer, but towards me, meaning the second waypoint. And I will not be able to track anymore once the driver clicks left location on my waypoint and is starting his or her way to customer B. Sorry. So we have another question from Sev. Are tasks and orders the same things, or is it 2 different things? So yeah, this is a question of well, we refer to tasks both as orders and tasks, but under on our APIs and on our services, you will see that we always refer to it as task. So yeah, whenever you see task or order, it is the same thing. Usually the parameter would be task ID, for example, if we're talking about the ID. So I have a question here from, I hope I pronounce it correctly, from Uniem, that is saying that he's still a bit confused about services and APIs. So let's use the time that we have right now just to explain a little bit. So services are uniquely generated URLs that you use in order, this is the destination of the call, and basically you don't need to sign your call. So you can create more than one URL, for example, for the same action type and tag it differently, as we had on our example of French and English websites, for example. And you can also, sorry, as we talked about create order, the service for creating an order or creating a task, sorry that I'm confusing both of them all the time. So when you create an order using the services, the flow of, you use just one call. So you do everything on the same call. While on APIs, you would need 3 calls for that. So you would need to first create a customer, then create a task, then add waypoints to it. APIs, on the other hand, they require an access token and a signature on each call, and it's a little different approach to integration, let's say. So basically, you always need the same URL. So the URL for create task is always the same. It's not uniquely generated, and then of course you need to sign each call you make. You need to sign individually according to that specific time and that specific call. So I see that Rygo is with us again, so I'm going to pass the presentation to Rygo, and we will come back to questions afterwards. Rygo, you should have the presentation rights.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Hello? Hello? I'm Rygo Siitam from Estonia. I'm the CEO of Foodant, and I would like to show a little presentation, not presentation, but cartoon of our video. So it is just 15 seconds, so just enjoy. Okay, so that is a video what we have made. Uh, our system is worked out basically by Bringg and us, and the point why we wanted to make it was because in Estonia there weren't any kind of companies who is doing it automatically. So basically you need to call somebody to order food. So we wanted to make it more innovative. So our innovation is that the customer can track in real time where the order is. You can see from my web page that we have right now 5 different orders. 2 of those are given to one person because there is only 1 minute change about those, and he can take those. Right now we have about 11 drivers, and we are operating in 3 different cities. About Hadar talked those webhooks, and we are using those. We are using those because we have automated everything. That means our webhooks are giving all the time some kind of information to the customer, to the restaurants, and to our drivers. First of all, if the order has been placed, we are not using. We are using grab mode, but also we have a dispatcher who is looking all the orders, because sometimes we can give one driver who is driving some kind of order next order also, because it is on the way. So we are always checking the orders, and right now we are not using auto dispatch. So what's going to happen in our system when the order is coming? That is our homepage. Here is one notification. The order has been placed, and the restaurant has cancelled the order because they are too busy. Actually, this is just a demo order. So here, that first row, what you can see, everything is in Estonian, so that's how we work. We don't have an English version right now. The blue means that the driver on the way to the restaurant point. If the driver has picked up, the color is changing dark blue, and it's showing that the order has been picked up and left from restaurant. And if the driver has arrived to the customer, then it's going to green. Here is two different greens, because that one what is marked is this courier, and that one what is marked right now, that means that customers has picked up by themselves. And the red one means that the order has been cancelled. Here are quite a lot of the test orders, because we're installing new restaurants all the time. Here is one order what we have cancelled from Bringg, because the order was empty. And the webhooks are very important for us, because every time if something happens, our drivers and customers must know it. And also we need to change fast the status for the restaurant also, because the restaurant owners are looking our site and they want to know what kind of orders has been what are in progress, and what has been given to transport and what has been marked as done. So the webhooks are very important for us, and actually what could I, let's see what can I see. We have two waypoints, like Hadar told before. First one is restaurant address, where we need to be, what time. Here you can see it is 6:27. Right now it's 6:38. Our driver is in place, but the restaurant hasn't finished yet the order. So that is very critical for us, because if they are not giving us the right time, that means our driver is standing one place, and we can't take different orders at the same time. So the time what the restaurant must give is very, very important for our system. Let me see, maybe I can show some kind of history. I can play it. Yes?
I just wanted to let you know that we have a question to you. Sorry for stopping you, but maybe it can also help you. So someone asked, Pessy asked, how or where do you receive orders from? So do you receive orders from phone calls, ordering system? If you could elaborate a little bit about that.
We have a phone number, but mostly we want to use our system, food and the system. It is basically everything is automated. Let's say we would like to order from. We have a demo restaurant, so I can actually show how it works for our system. It is a disabled status, so here is no logo, here is no header, but I can make at least the demo order. Here is with transportation is disabled because I'm right now in Pärnu. Wait, let me. Yes, because I'm in Tallinn. I need to be in Pärnu. Now you can see that our delivery has been accepted, and I make order. Right now it is not approved, but if it will approve, it automatically moves to Bringg. Hadar, can you wait a little bit, 1 minute? I will take my demo stuff so I can actually show how it works.
Okay, Rygo, is there anything else you would like to share with us?
Sorry about it. Back.
Sure. Rygo?
Yes.
Is there anything else you're going
I'm
to
back.
share with us?
So
Oh, sure.
yeah, I'm showing how it's moving to Bringg automatically right now. Okay, now I have added the order, and you can see here is demo restaurant. So it is moving automatically to our system and to Bringg. So here is also the notifications that restaurant has accepted the order. It is done 6:58 p.m. and also it is already in Bringg, and now we can assign to some drivers. So that's how we work.
Thank you very much for sharing this with us. Anything else you would like to add?
From my side, it's all. If there is some kind of question, I can answer.
Great. So thank you very much. I'm going to mute you just for the sake of questions, but if we have other questions for Rygo, I do invite everyone to write them in the questions, and I will let Rygo answer them. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the question. So thank you again to Rygo for sharing all of this with us. And this is a great example for all of you that are working on building your own integration now. This is a great example for you on how to kind of get started on one flow. So I guess each one of you has a different business flow that you need to integrate into Bringg. This is an example of how you take the flow of picking up from restaurants, delivering to customers, using API and webhooks to get all the information flowing between one system and the other. So again, thank you for sharing all this with us. I'm going to go quickly back to one of the questions that I was asked before and that I answered before, and just about customer tracking between when you have more than one stop, so when a customer can track the driver. And I'm just going to add a tiny detail to that. So I said that each customer can track only their waypoint, but we do offer an option, and you will see that on your settings you can decide on a merchant mode. So one of the merchant modes is route. When you're on route mode, you can allow all of your customers to track all of the time. So this is just a small addition to what I said earlier. So I'm going to go back to questions that you asked and hope that we can reply to all of them. So Mark asks about the webhooks and asks what information is returned with the webhooks. So that really depends on the webhook that you're using. So for example, if you want to use one of the check-in webhooks, for example, driver arrived to location or driver left location, what you will get back is information about which driver it is and what the location is, for example, and which task it is. But if you use order created, then you will get some other details, maybe the order details, the order name, the order ID, who is the driver that is assigned, who is the customer and what's their phone number, those kind of details. And if you use the note added webhook, you would see other details. So it really depends on the webhook, but the details you get are relevant to that webhook. And of course, you can try and see which ones work for you and what details you need from them. So the options there are a lot of options, so you just need to choose what works for you. Another question from Mark is whether you can create service URLs programmatically. So at the moment, no, but it will be available soon. We have a question from Krishna about the driver and customer application and whether they can be hosted on your Google Play or Google Play Store account or App Store account. And that's an important point to note a little bit the differences. So first of all, we don't have a customer application, as I said. We have a customer web view, but you can use our SDK to integrate this web view and integrate this customer experience into your application. If you do that, of course, the application is yours and you can host it on your account. As for the driver app is a Bringg app, so we do not white label this app. In the future, we will have SDK for the driver app as well. So if you choose to use the already made Bringg app, then it will be hosted on our account. But if you use in the future, once they are available, if you use the SDK for the driver app, of course, again, you can host it on your account. Sorry. We have a question from Jin about Magento. And whether we can use our API to integrate with Magento. So this is a good opportunity to actually mention that we do have some native integrations. So we do have some platforms that are already integrated with Bringg, and we would be more than happy to integrate with others. So Jin, I do invite you, if you are interested, to offer Magento this integration. Other platforms that we're integrated with can be found on our website under integrations. And if you use one of those platforms, it will just make it easier for you to integrate. Next question we have. Let's see. So we have a question to Rygo. And it's a question from Sev asking Rygo if he uses the standard Bringg customer portal at all. So just to kind of, I just want to clarify something here. We do offer a very, very simple customer portal for placing orders. It can be branded to your brand. This is a very simple form to enter pretty much name, phone number, address, order details, and submit it and it will be created as a Bringg task. So if you are interested in that, you can easily do that. In Rygo's case, Rygo uses his own website created for this. So if you have any other questions, you're welcome to write them in the question box. There are some longer questions that are very specific and I will not go into. One of them is from Daniel, one of them is from Mark. I do invite all of you, even after this webinar, if you have any questions, to write to us at support@bringg.com. And we will be more than happy to help. So if you have some specific questions to your use case, if you need some assistance on how to get started with the integration, just write to us and we'll be happy to help. So let's see if we have other questions. We have a question from Ryan, and thank you for asking that. Ryan asks if the session is recorded and will it be available. So the answer is yes. All of our webinars are recorded and all of them are available on our website under webinars. So just where we saw the upcoming webinar, you will see other recordings. Let's quickly go there. So under resources, webinars, you will always find the upcoming webinar as well as recordings of older webinars. So I do welcome all of you to see our older webinars getting started and some features and customizations on the Bringg dashboard. And we will add here as this webinar as well and the upcoming ones too. So these are all the questions we have. If anyone else has a question, please write them down. I'll give another minute for that. And again, of course, if any questions come up in the future, just email us on support@bringg.com. All right. So thank you very much. We will end here. If you have questions that were left unanswered, please send us an email. Thank you very much for attending this webinar, and we hope to see you in the next ones as well. Thank you and have a good day.